Perhaps if we kick off then, Damian, do you just want to introduce yourself? I think probably good. I know some of these guys know you, but some don't. So over to you.
My name's Damian. I've got a midlife crisis running problem. I'm very frightened about the big kerfuffle fuck, and I'm a parent, and it's really hot today.
Yeah, I've read that word in your book, but kerfuffle fuck, whatever it is. That's an interesting one. Okay then. So David's here. David's the co-founder as well of the team. I'll let you, David, introduce yourself perhaps when you kick off with your questions. If I give you a go, I might call you. if you look pleadingly. Okay, so let's, without further ado, it's a personal type questions, not too personal, Damian. Did you go to university?
Yes, the world famous University of Derby. Don't laugh. Yeah, but I nearly didn't, because my A-levels were so bad that first time around that I didn't go, and all my friends went, and that motivated me a bit. And hilariously, I failed media studies, which is A, probably the easiest A-level you can do, and B, where I ended up working for 20 years. So yeah, then I went to university and I did 2 degrees in the end, but not proper ones, sociology.
Oh, good. Okay, so about I shouldn't be swearing, should I? But this question should have come before the first one, I suppose. Did you pass your 11 plus, Damian?
I never took 11 plus.
Oh, good.
I probably would have failed.
No, I'm sure you wouldn't. Who was your best friend at school?
Oh gosh. Well, we moved around quite a lot. I didn't. We moved around. I remember having a friend called William.
Okay.
I was very young. William. Yeah, I remember. Hi, William.
Memory. Hi, William. Okay. And yeah, it's a bit more interesting question here. What is your greatest achievement to date?
Oh gosh. I don't.
I mean, you've written a book, haven't you? So
I've written a book. There we are.
I didn't answer for you.
Trying to fool some people that I'm not going bold when I am, or if I haven't fooled anyone, have I? No. Yeah, that book then. That book.
It's a very good book. It's my Bible. Okay, other accomplishments then, off the top of your head then, quickly go. Come on.
That's not a question.
Attending Greg's interview.
Okay, surviving 7 minutes of this. My grade N for media studies, A-level. Pretty sure when I was about 7 or 8, I was first or second in a dancing competition at someone's birthday when I used an empty lemonade bottle for like an air guitar. I remember that.
Did you run at that age?
No. Well, just like every 7-year-old does, I suppose, but not
running after a few girls, I suppose. But okay.
Can't possibly comment.
Okay. What is your ideal day spent doing?
Well, that's a good one. I like that. Probably up in my private jet. No, it'd probably start with a nice big breakfast of nut butter on toast and lots of tea, and then probably about a 2-hour run, and then chatting to you, Greg, and then maybe chilling with my kids, and maybe, if I'm honest, maybe watching the Arsenal on the telly later on, or something like that.
You've ruined a question now. I was going to ask you who you supported, what football teams. You don't support the Gunners, do you? Really? Are you serious?
What can I thrust in your way to annoy you? The pattern on my wallet. Does that mean anything to you?
Okay.
I know technically it's not allowed, but my close second team is Forest Green Rovers, that is where I kind of grew up more, and just so happens to be the most ethical club in the world, which is sort of a coincidence and sort of not, because those who know Dale Vince, I could literally see his first wind turbine go up from my parents' house where they still live now. I could see it go up on the hill opposite, and then he ended up being the chairman of Forest Green more recently. So that's quite a nice connection to that club, and I go and see them more often than the Arsenal.
Sorry, I'm just looking at who's here and who isn't. Okay, fine. Let's go for something a bit more meaty then. Let's hop off onto something a bit more meaty. Are you a supporter of fox hunting or not?
No.
Why?
It's cruel. And well, if I'm totally honest, yeah, there are certain areas of society that irritate me, and it might be those sorts of areas. But it seems needlessly cruel, if I'm honest. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, getting a bit more meaty then on the activism area. Recently, Just Stop Oil. A guy jumped up on a snooker table and ruined a snooker match. I felt really sorry for the snooker players. Choke. What do you think of that incident? I mean, did you support that?
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, so grateful for the courage of people like that. You dread to think where we'd be without them raising attention. So yeah, massive admiration. I think they're heroes.
So to turn that one on yourself, then you'd be quite happy if you were in a very important ultra race and somebody from Just Stop Oil jumped out and threw orange powder all over you and stopped the race.
Yeah, no problem. I've been asked that a few times, so I've had to sort of think.
Well done.
Yeah, no, I think that's all right. I think there's something bigger. There's a bigger race going on than us running around in circles or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, I can see David's champing at the bit there. Go on, David. Hit him with a really tough question. Go.
You know what? I did just think of a really nice one for you, Damian. You've probably seen all the nice temperature charts at the moment. All the records being broken. Would you mind explaining the El Nino weather pattern to everyone on the call?
Oh, cripes, that's a bit... I don't know if I fully understand it. You might have to correct me, but when I used to live in Australia, and it was more of a thing discussed down there because it happens more in the Pacific, I believe. But it's a cycle of about 4 years, and about every fourth year, there's kind of, I believe, more heat and more hurricanes and more extreme weather. And I think that's seen as part of a natural cycle, but it's due this year. And we're already seeing, without that coming into play, we're already seeing record heat around. And yeah, I mean, I'm preaching to the converted here, but what's scary is, the fires in Canada were record breaking. The one that sounds really scary to me is these heating North Atlantic Ocean, heating way beyond anything it's been. As far as I know, it's not getting in the mainstream press. That's terrifying. And then the record low ice in Antarctica, all at the same time, and you're like, something's going on here. But yeah, David, correct me if I got anything of that wrong. But that was my understanding of El Nino. So it's sort of fairly natural, but it's combining with everything else this year.
I mean, I'm not a climate scientist myself, so I must admit I'm not an expert either. My understanding is that there's the natural cycle between El Nino and, is the other one Los Ninos, or anyway, one that's hotter, one that's colder, with the currents in the seas, and we were just going on the transition into the hotter version, and previous years were almost disguised by the cooler version of it.
People to mute themselves if they come on the call. You're getting a bit of feedback. You mute yourselves, please. Thank you. Go, David.
So previous years where we still had record high temperatures were slightly masked because of the weather, the climate, the version of the cycle we were in at the time. So now that we're switching to the other one, it's pretty scary stuff. Only going to get worse, but yeah.
Okay, do you fancy a bit of trivia then? Sorry, did you finish that bit?
Yeah, all good.
A bit of trivia. It's very trivial. If you had the choice for a dinner date, Damian, who would you choose? Would it, out of Jasmine Paris and Greta Thunberg, who would be your choice?
Well, I hope Jasmine's not watching, but yeah, I'd choose Greta. Purely because I've had dinner with Jasmine several times, so I don't want to make it sound like that's not an appealing option, but it'd be interesting to meet Greta Thunberg. But I imagine we'd be very much aligned. It might be more interesting to have dinner with, I don't know, the CEO of Shell or something like that. It would probably be more interesting. I'd pressing questions for people like that. I think.
Okay. Because you know Jasmine very well, don't you? Because you've been her coach, haven't you? Is that right?
Yeah. And we shared a house with her husband as well, Conrad, in
oh right.
the Barclay Marathons actually. So she can attest to my terrible cooking and bad choice of weird coffee and crisps that I bought by accident, because they have different things in America. Let's just say.
So, okay, look, for the people that are new to the Green Runners, what's the history? You were involved when the Green Runners, the concept first came around. What's the story there?
Well, so really it goes back to, I think, late 2019, and both me and Dan Lawson were at Extinction Rebellion protests in London, but we didn't know we were both there. So it was only afterwards, I think, his wife Charlotte contacted me and said, oh, Dan was there. Dan, of course, had managed to get arrested. I'd just been told to get off a wall by a policeman, and I'd meekly obeyed him, something I'm embarrassed of to this day. But then we just got chatting and said, well, why don't we get all the runners together who care about this stuff, and see if we can, do some activism, do something. So I started collecting people in a WhatsApp group, and kind of anyone I did see a few other runners who had posted on Instagram, maybe subtly, such as Finley Wild, for example, subtly that they had been to Extinction Rebellion protests, or anyone who I spotted who was mentioning anything about sustainability. Certainly, David went in there at some point, and the group grew to well over 40, maybe even nearly 50. And it was a good place for sharing ideas and knowledge and enthusiasm. But then AJ Hapspel, who I also coach, is a very strong runner. He was like, why don't we form a club? And it was like, oh yeah. And then very quickly, I think, really, because it's just such a strong idea, it just happened quite quickly. I think that was not long before Christmas, and we were sort of, I could be fibbing, but ready to go in sort of February, March-ish. And I think it went from there, really, and then it's been
like a couple of years ago, was it?
No, just last year. Last year.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, we're only just over a year old, so
it's certainly growing fast, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that just shows. Yeah, people wanted something, kind of thing, like a lot of people. We're concerned but don't know what to do, so it's kind of
Well, for me, it's definitely given a structure to my thinking. There's no doubt about it. With the pledges and that kind of thing, it certainly gives a structure to, you sit there thinking, I want to do something, but then if you look at the Green Runners pledges, which do you think is the most important pledge out of the Green Runners pledges? Speaking
out, which I just did just then, sort of. I mean, that whole debate is I suppose individual footprint reductions versus nudging for system change, and clearly pushing the system, if we can, and we have, is more powerful, will have so much more impact. The classic case is the kind of if you're concerned about washing up your hummus pots for recycling, which most of us do anyway, and then a coal mine, if you're too busy on that and a coal mine gets opened up down the road, that we've messed up really when that happens, and that has happened recently in Cumbria. So that's the thing to concentrate on, not our own little footprint, because that was an idea from BP anyway. So I'm not saying it's pointless personal stuff, because I've made reductions, but the most important thing is to get together and nudge the system, I think.
Good. Okay, I'll go one more trivia and then David can come back in.
I like it. I like David too, but I like the trivia.
Great.
Trivia.
Uh,
He asks difficult science
right.
questions.
What would you prefer, running an ultra or going to the theatre?
A.
Did you answer?
Yes,
Okay.
running an ultra. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And
Okay, just one more trivia then,
both my
quickly.
parents were drama teachers.
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't think the theatre, but it doesn't. I'd rather run an ultra. Yeah.
Right. One more trivia and then David can come in. Do you miss a good steak?
No. I miss chicken a little bit. I'm all right with cheese. I've got over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No.
you're totally plant-based now, are you?
Yes, but there's always, like, if you're being honest, that there will inevitably be occasional moments where the choice is like not eating, or there's some, or there's something that isn't, I definitely, never buy meat or eat meat unless it's, going to go in the bin from my children's plates. But yeah, I mean, to say I'm 100% would be a lie. I'm probably 98%.
Yeah. I mean, how do your children adopt to this? I mean, are your children sort of forcibly on a plant-based diet?
No, because I'm lucky. I also coach Renee McGregor, who's a sort of very well-renowned sports dietitian, and her advice for children is not to be that extreme, because you've got to be really, really on it with their diets to make sure they're getting all the micronutrients, basically. And
What age are they, Damian? What age are they?
9 and 12.
Okay.
So
difficult, I'm with my grandchildren. I'm thinking, how do I talk about global warming to, and they're a similar age to your children. How do you talk to children of that age about global warming? It's so difficult.
I think it's important not to be misleadingly optimistic, but I don't go around saying, hey kids, your life's going to be a bit shit. So yeah, I try not to go on about it in front of them, but if they've got a question, I'll give them an honest answer. I'll usually up first, just in case I'm, not being entirely accurate. To be sure. But I think you've got to be honest. But we shouldn't go around scaring them unnecessarily.
Yeah, you certainly can't hide the facts, can you? That's for certain. Yeah. Okay, David, you're in, man. Go.
I was going to say, Damian, on your slip up in the Barclay when you're over there with John Kelly, and what was that? We nearly had to kick you out for that.
Yeah. So another one is, if you do travel, what you find is, different countries have different foods. For example, I remember finding it difficult to get hummus in Italy. That was no problem in America, where they have chocolate hummus, dark chocolate hummus, which was amazing. But yeah, I was struggling for one or two items, and John Kelly did take me out for lunch 3 times. And I'd say the American South isn't a vegan hotspot. I wasn't buying any meat or anything again, but once or twice, there'd be something. I guess it might have had a tiny bit of butter or a tiny bit of milk in. But cut a long story short, my crew saw me eat some tiny cinnamon rolls, which was there wasn't much on the menu I could have eaten. I think it was potatoes, or that potatoes were fine, but they weren't. And so he bought a load, sort of without me knowing. He bought a load for me during the race, and I felt I should eat them. I mean, I do find I've had conversations with Jasmine about this sort of thing. I actually sort of had I can't blame. I DNF'd at UTMB when it was my first sort of big race as a vegan athlete. Now, that was totally my fault, and I decided not to continue. But that did complicate my mindset a bit, and I didn't plan it that well. But I was reluctant to take food when I really needed it, and I've decided now that in a race and around a race, it's more important getting a good result. Because if I win a race or do well, I'll get interviewed and I can talk about this stuff. Whereas, if I do badly because I stuck to, I didn't take one cookie or something, I mean, that's more ethically pure, but, I won't be able to spread a message so widely. So I don't, I give myself 1 or 2% leeway. band, I'm okay with that. But please don't kick me out, David.
There's a guy called Des Tinney who's put his hand up. Des, are you desperate to ask a question of Damian? Please come in, Des.
It was just before. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Des.
Yeah, we can, yeah.
It was only to talk about the second biggest lie. We've got a climate lie, but we've also got running as a cheap way of exercising. And I'd noticed today, Damian, that you had posted something about giving support to underprivileged people to get them on the trails. I was just wondering, I thought it was an absolute great idea. I was just wondering if you would want to give us any more information about that just now.
Oh, thank you, Des. And for those who don't know, Des is another Green Runners co-founder. Yeah, I've been unfairly celebrated, I think. With Runners World did do a story on a little group, a scheme we've got going called Into Ultra. It wasn't my idea. Someone who's been lucky in life came to me and sort of said, look, I've got some spare money. I want to do some good in running. And we sort of brainstormed and we got one or two others involved. And we thought, where can we, what's the best angle on that? And we decided that, yeah, ultimately ultra running, it's well, even just looking at us, sadly, we're all white males by the looks of us. So, yeah, it is quite a costly sport, really. So we thought hopefully we can help make it a bit more accessible. So what's been amazing is, so there's a little bit of a fund there, but so many brands and races and just all sorts of physiotherapists, people offering filming work, people offering legal work. So many people have got in touch saying we want to help. That we've almost got more people helping than applicants. It's been amazing. But our next challenge is how do we reach outside of ultra running? Like, I think we can quickly spread a message inside ultra running, just on social media or whatever. But how do we reach those people who could really benefit perhaps from more running and who aren't in the ultra running already? So that's probably our next challenge. But yeah, early days. But thank you for bringing that up, Des. It's exciting to be involved. But yeah, it wasn't my idea technically. But yeah, hopefully some good will come.
Thanks for the question, Des.
Awesome, thank you.
Damian, you call yourself a climate hypocrite. What do you mean by this?
I think I've got a book behind me somewhere. I probably won't find it. I think we've got to not that one. That's rubbish. That's rubbish. I think the words of Jonathan Pye, we're either a hypocrite or an arsehole because we'll all have a footprint of some sort. So we've got to get beyond the whataboutery of people going, oh, but you flew on a plane in 1986. You ate an avocado. We've just got to get beyond that because that's just whataboutery and I don't want to say childish because that's not fair on children, but that's not intelligent debate. And we've all got a footprint, some smaller than others. But if we're all too worried about being called a hypocrite that we don't do anything, then where do we end up? We're almost paying for that already, you could say.
Yeah, I think if we were afraid of that, then it would be inaction, wouldn't it? You wouldn't do anything if you were too worried about it.
Yeah, and I know people who do, and that's kind of okay. But it's too late in the day. It's too late. And we've got to take the power out of the word, I think. So if we embrace the word and say, yeah, I'm a climate hypocrite, so what? But I care about this stuff and I'm doing all I can, then, I think that takes the power out of it. I put it in some of my social media bios because then some people do go, oh, you're a hypocrite. I say, yep, it says it there. And then it's not painful to me to be called that.
We can't all go off and live in caves, can we? There's only elements of our lives that we can change. It's fine. David, go on.
Well, actually, one of the questions you've got planned, Greg, I think I quite like this one, which is, it's would you want to be a billionaire? But then also I'd like to expand that to how do you feel about sort of wealth in general and billionaires in the world?
Blimey.
I like that question.
I don't know if I've thought a great deal about it. Obviously there's disgusting inequality in the world, which makes me pretty angry. And usually the people with the money are the people with the much higher footprint. And although I've just said an individual's footprint isn't perhaps the most important thing, if someone's footprint is 10 or 20 times bigger than the average person's, then they should be paying for that, really. So I do love the ideas of, all right, I'm not an economist. I haven't thought this through in detail in an intellectual way, but the idea of a carbon tax, that sort of thing, sounds brilliant to me. So yeah, I think the people who are polluting the most should be paying the most.
Got a good economy question to follow up with that then. How do you feel about gross domestic product as a measurement of a country's progress?
In my limited reading, it seems like that has had its day, and that we should move on from that because it's got us into this big mess, big kerfuffle. But yeah, not an economist. I do have donut economics in my house, but I haven't read it, I'll be honest. I hope to.
Okay, I love the trivia question, so I'm going to ask another.
Yeah, not trivia. None of David's
What would you prefer?
science.
Would you prefer to run an ultra or travel back in time?
Ooh. If I travel back in time, can I come back again?
No. No, you can do what you like. I said the ideal answer is you travel back in time and you run an ultra while you're there.
Oh, yes. Oh, that, I'm going to have to think about that. That's that. I mean, the chance to time travel, you're right. It doesn't stop you doing an ultra, does it? So I'm going to go for time travel. I was a big Back to the Future fan when I was young. Well, I don't know as to where I'd go and what I'd do.
Lap 5 Barclay.
Yes. Just go back
Did
to
you ever have the ambition to be an astronaut?
Not really, but it's probably quite cool, isn't it?
I just want to pick up the time travel one. If you can time travel, which period of time would be the best to run an ultra in? Or the most interesting, let's say.
Well, I must say I did write a story for Runner's World a few years ago on the pedestrian era. You know, when people were Captain Barclay and stuff, and when they're running from Paris to Moscow, or were they? It's before Strava, so we don't really know. But that era sounds fascinating to me. The late 1900s. I mean, there are so many eras you could pick, aren't there? And there are so many crimes in the world. You could hopefully go back and maybe divert, or without getting too serious again. But the pedestrian era would be a lot of fun. That's the ultimate sort of genesis of the ultra running, I would say.
Did you say you've done Spartathlon? No, you haven't, have you, Damian? It's only Dan that's done it in the team at the moment. Because that would be an interesting one to go back to.
It's got some history. Not enough bogs on that one.
Yeah, bit hot as well.
Damian, have you ever run the London Marathon, and would you like to?
Yeah, I have done. It was actually a lot of fun. But once will probably do. But I did something a bit cooler, I think, the year before, actually, called the Backwards London Marathon. I don't know how many of you heard of this, but people do still meet up, I think, at about 3 or 4 in the morning at the finish line, and then they run it in reverse because it's all marked out. Even has the optimal line on the road, and you can follow it through, and you kind of finish, if you time it well, just before they're going to start the real thing. And I did that one year, and it felt like Fight Club. It was really cool. I'd recommend people try and get involved in that. That was fun.
Okay, similar question. Have you ever run a park run? If so, where?
Yes, I think I've done 2, maybe 1, and I think it was near me in Wiltshire, Westbury. I think it's Westbury, near Bradford on Avon. Yes, and a kid beat me.
Did you find the distance a challenge?
I found the effort a challenge. I didn't like, all that heavy breathing and stuff.
Are you a very good sprinter in actual fact? I mean, when you finish an ultra, if there's someone just on your shoulder, are you up for the sprint?
It depends. Sometimes yes.
If it's Jack, you'd just give up.
Isn't it funny though? I mean, I'm nothing of a runner compared to you guys, but isn't it strange how when you see the finishing post, I can actually sprint. If I see the finishing post, I can sprint. If I had to do it round the corner, I wouldn't stand a chance. Okay, David.
Yeah, it's amazing. You've always got a bit left, even when you think you haven't.
Shall we do a running question? An interesting, more easier question than my science questions. Which session in the week is your favourite?
Long run. In fact, yeah, tomorrow's long run day. Yeah, I like a long run. I don't know. It's more of an adventure, isn't it? It's usually 2, 3, 4 hours in the hills, hopefully, and yeah, and you can stuff your face and freedom, nature, things like that. Don't usually have to push too hard. Yeah, that's my favourite.
What does he eat?
I'll just follow that up. On your long runs, do you stop much to like just enjoy the
Selfies.
scenery, or do you just go through?
Lots of selfies. It probably depends a bit. I guess there are different phases of training. I guess long runs do get more sort of focused as you get closer to a race, and there might be some that are sort of have some efforts in, if I'm honest, or there might be a focus on strong downhills or strong uphills, or just getting in lots of vert, for example. But a lot of the year they're probably just about maybe 16 miles, and yeah, just nice and relaxed and easy. And probably on those, I mean, sometimes I'm with a friend, I suppose, so we're chatting. But yeah, I can be quite lazy sometimes and stop and, well, it's not lazy, is it? But yeah, I'll stop and admire the view at times, for sure.
What do you have to say to the people that say walking is not running?
Yeah.
Well, I guess technically it's not, but you should see how fast some people walk, I suppose. Or I call it power hiking. Power hiking sounds a bit more, you know.
A lot of walkers walk a lot faster than I run, unfortunately. So. Okay, great stuff.
What does he eat?
My wife's prompting me. What do you eat? My wife says.
Before a run.
He eats plants.
Yeah, before a run.
Before a run, Damian, what do you eat? My wife wants to know.
I mean, I'd still say porridge is the classic, depending on the time of day the race is going to start. I mean, porridge is a classic. That's probably one of the that's going to be one of the best options. I'd probably stick some blueberries in there, and maybe a bit of dark chocolate or raspberries or something like that. Bit of cinnamon, something like that. Yeah, let's go with that. Let's go with porridge.
So, okay, Damian, you're a happily married man. What does your wife say? Sorry, your wife's name is? What's your wife's name?
Amy.
That was a tough question, wasn't it?
I forget, you know.
What does Amy think of all this blooming ultra running then? I mean, what does she think about it all? Yeah,
I guess she thought it was all a bit silly at first, and now it's just the thing I do, I suppose. She's not, how do I say this respectfully? She's not, massively interested. Although it was quite funny. She does work for Trees Not Teas, so at one stage she wouldn't have known who Killian Jornet was or anything, and then suddenly she knew more than me, and she was like, "Oh, Killian's doing this," and I was like, "What? How do you know?" And then because of Trees Not Teas, she had to start taking a lot of interest in sort of the running scene, and is more informed now, and more informed than me.
Okay, something's come up on the chat. A guy called Nick Moore is asking, and I'll read it. It often feels like when making individual choices, we need to optimize multiple factors: production, CO2e, plastic waste, ethical issues, etc. And many of them aren't always obvious or clear. How do you think about doing it? How do we weigh up, say, tons of carbon versus furthering inequality? Wow. I wish I thought of
that. Yeah, I mean, there's ethical considerations in certainly every financial choice we make, in most choices we make, and a lot of the time we just don't have the time, do we, to try and work out whether even watching programs, is the company that made that program, do they act ethically throughout the supply chain? It's not realistic to expect us to be on top of everything. So. But yet most of us do care. But I think so. The important thing for me, or at least when it comes to climate breakdown, is to realise what the elephant and the mice are, or at least what the elephants are, and that usually will be your travel, your food, your energy, and the stuff you buy. I guess the stuff you buy is quite a broad one, but yeah, if you, in terms of personal footprints, if you think about those three and where you can improve there, then they're the three. Yeah, four if you include things you're buying. but I would honestly, I still think overshadowing all of that is speaking out and nudging for system change. And I know that's harder to sort of quantify or calculate. There isn't a footprint for that you can sort of neatly make some numbers off. But I think that will matter more. So I don't, I know people that might fly more than I do, but if they join in climate protests, I'll love them for it. I think that's more important to me. I hope that answers his question. But
I think it's a good answer. I would just add, use the Green Runners community to ask the choice you're making and what people's thoughts or research on the topic is. So, for example, you might think about electric vehicles, which is one that many people have questions around because of the batteries and the ethical concerns.
There's an expert in our group
with
here.
Mining. So we can. That's something that someone in the community may work in that space or may have experience of and can share resources, etc. And so I think that my response would be, well, ask the community what people think, and we can all share and learn together. And then the second thing is what you were saying, Damian, which is don't get yourself tied up in knots about it, because as long as you're making a choice that's informed and a conscious choice that is in line with what your values are and what you think is right, that's the best that you can do in that situation.
I must say, like the words you just said, they get tied up in knots. I'm getting regularly tied up in knots. One of my questions to Damian was, does he suffer from climate stress? I would say I definitely do. It's on my mind all the time. What have you got to say about that, Damian?
Yeah, no, I think I probably do. Nearly every day, I have an unhealthy habit, if I'm honest, of Twitter isn't the first thing I go on, but I'm quite quickly on Twitter and the Guardian, and nearly every day I start by retweeting or retweeting 2 or 3 things that have scared me that day, and it's happened in the last few weeks. It's been even more, as we were discussing earlier. So I don't know how helpful that is, but I almost feel a bit better doing that because I'm kind of sharing it. I mean, I would hope that people who follow me on Twitter have muted me or something by now, because I'm a massive doom mongerer really on Twitter. But that's part. I've realised that's part of me coping is almost going, look everyone, oh shit. I think that's helpful. But then I think throwing yourself into something like the Green Runners and similar projects, that helps as well. Engaging with it.
Another quote from you that comes to mind is, you say that you're an annoying person. I mean, I assume you mean that you don't mind annoying people because the cause is worthy. Is that where you're coming from? Is that the thinking?
Oh, yeah. I think it's kind of too late not to be annoying, really. And I'm sure I've a lot on social media, at least for what that counts for. I'm sure some people have got too annoyed and aren't listening, have unfollowed me, I imagine, but it's just too late to be anything else, I think.
That's brilliant. Okay, I'll go in. Kenny Alexander has written in one on the chat, and I'll read it. Seeing as Damian is rumoured to be, I was going to mention tea, actually, it's a very important subject. As Damian is rumoured to be fuelled by tea, has he considered becoming an ambassador? Not sure of spelling, ambassador, for a fair trade, organic, loose tea company. Eddie is the fella that jumped on the snooker table. He is now known as What's Its Boy. 2 in 1 there, but I'm on the tea front. You're a great tea fueler upper, aren't you?
Yes. Well, I am. I'm open to offers from ethical tea brands. Actually, no one did approach me a couple of years ago, but they came in big plastic packets that wasn't recyclable, and I kind of said, I want to, but and they said they would improve the packaging, and they haven't got back to me.
Have you heard of Pucker?
Yeah.
They're
I'm not.
Seem quite good.
I'm not. I can afford some tea. I'm not desperate to. If people get in touch, that's nice, but I'm not going to go around sending lots of begging emails to tea brands.
Have you tried matcha?
That sounds familiar.
Green tea. It's a Japanese green tea, matcha. It's rumoured to boost your running performance. Mind you, a lot of other things are.
It's crap.
I think green tea's overrated, I'll be honest.
Okay. Right. David.
Well, I was thinking maybe we should open up to the floor in a moment and
Yeah,
ask
sure.
if anyone has
Yeah.
other questions.
Yeah.
I guess if I ask one while people are thinking of questions or putting hands up, maybe.
Yeah, if anybody wants to come in, then please put your little hand up, and I'll come to you in order. Any questions for Damian?
While you're doing that, so I'll ask about the relay, Damian. So, when are you getting involved with the climate relay, and how are you feeling for it?
Yeah, it's amazing that it's happening again. So thanks for your work behind the scenes again, David, as ever. Yeah, I'm going to join in. It's slightly tricky. Just as it gets near me, it turns into a bike relay. It seems, which is I was disappointed at first, but then actually, well, it makes getting home from it a lot easier because you can just cycle back, and that could be a lot of fun still. So yeah, I'm still undecided whether to. I'm definitely going to be cycling. I think it's the 5th of July, I think.
It's the 5th on the Bradford and Avon stage.
Yes, that's the one. I should be able to join in the day before a bit as well, around Bristol or something. So yeah, really excited. It was brilliant last time. I know this time it's very slightly different, but I think it's fantastic. And the other company behind it are really, really professional. Actually, it's very well organised and thought through. And I don't know. To me as a runner, there's no better activism than actually running. And that being connected to a message somehow, that just feels the most natural thing. It's hard to come up with concepts where, actually running is activism. So when it comes along, to me, it's just natural and so much easier to be involved. And yeah, I mean, you feel good because you've been on a run, but you feel good because you're part of something much bigger as well. So it's, and it does sound like, yeah, I mean, as David got on the telly, so ITV are backing it, aren't they? So it should get much more coverage this time. So yeah, can't think of any downsides, and it was lovely last time.
Nothing coming in from the floor at the moment, but Damian, just like to ask yourself a question. What question would you like to have been asked? What is it? And then answer it, please.
That's one of the worst and best questions I've ever been asked. If I had to ask myself a question, it would be that one. And the answer would be...
It's a big opportunity. You can ask yourself a question.
Got to go back in time and run an ultra marathon to think about the answer.
Very good answer. I've got from the floor. We've got Nathan. Nathan, go ahead.
Hi, Nathan.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good to see you. Any big running adventures planned that you're able to share with the community at this point?
Yeah, I've got 2 more races for the year in the calendar. Tour de Géant it's in the Italian Alps. It's in September, which is a 200-mile race I did last year. Keen to go back and do a bit better. And before that, there's a newish race called Savigno Matterhorn Ultra Race, which is a 100-miler next month, which is very close by. So it's good. It's good. It's got some altitude. It's similar terrain. So that's kind of a B race to warm up. It turns out I was sort of hoping. Galen Reynolds got me onto it, and I was sort of hoping I might be able to do well there because it was quite off the radar. But he tells me like everyone who's doing the tour is also doing that race, and there's some absolute monsters doing the tour in the men's race anyway. So yeah, I may well fare just as badly. But yeah, big days out in exciting mountains and all accessible on public transport. So it's yeah, I did do it with less guilt than certain other races. Yeah.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, no, nothing coming in. What I'm going to do now is I've got your book here, Damian. I promise you I've read this 6 times. Now I'm just going to turn to a page randomly, purely randomly. I'm going to read. Right. London is in a more advantageous position than Paris because public transport is better. Indeed, when I did the race in 2017, it was easy to use the underground, as many thousands did, and the city is easy to access via public transport. Comment?
London's better.
You can't remember you wrote that, can you?
Yeah. I don't know what do you want me to add?
It's obviously it's obviously, different infrastructures, I suppose, isn't it, in different towns lend themselves to ease of travel or whatever. But try another one. That wasn't a very interesting one, really, was it?
Greg, I feel like we're scraping the bottom, bottom of the barrel here. Have you got any more ones? They were fun.
What did you want? Sorry.
Have you got any more trivia?
Anything on the floor? No, there isn't. Okay. What was your motivation to write the book, Damian?
I should credit Kirsty Reed at Vertebrate Publishing, who is a friend and an ultra runner, and she had contacted me previously to write a book, and then I suppose had watched or heard my my sort of experiments in trying to be a more ethical runner, and was kind of nudging me, saying, I think it's worth putting it into a book. What have you found out? What's your journey been like? And she bullied me into it, really. And then I felt like, it sort of had to be done. The more I dug into stuff, the worse things looked, especially in sort of sportswear. So I thought I've got to, it's not going to. I mean, the thing is, it's going to sell mostly to people who are already thinking that way. But I just felt there's too much stuff here not to share it. It's just too concerning, I suppose.
Is it selling well, Damian?
You don't really know. You get an update sort of once or twice a year. Nothing like my previous one sold really well, but didn't get nominated for any awards, quite rightly. That's been nominated for 2 awards. One of them was because the publishers are really conscientious themselves, and they do everything they can. The previous book might have been the first carbon negative book in the world. Inevitably, that does involve some offsetting, but they got our Carbon, who I've worked with, to look at every sort of stage of the process, the ink, the paper, distribution, to analyse it all, and could they do it any better? And sometimes it's never as straightforward as it sounds, is it? But things like not publishing a hardback version, not one of these debates is like, do you laminate the cover? But that involves plastic, but then it is likely to last longer and not get damaged in transit. So those sorts of debates. But they got the footprint down, and they got one of the awards is for them nominated. I don't know if they won it or not, but for their activities there, which I'm proud of them for that.
There's a question, Greg, in the chat from Nick. So, beyond improving the ability or awareness of getting to races by public transport, are there other ways you think race directors could help incentivize use of alternative travel or low carbon travel methods?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I still don't feel like most races are aware that that's probably the biggest part of their footprint. And some fell races do this already. Apparently, like, if you arrive 4 in a car, you might even get, free parking and maybe a pint at the end, or £5 off the entry or something. Whereas if you're solo occupant, arrive in a car, you're paying for parking, that sort of thing. Shane Only has experimented with the Skyline, Glencoe Skyline, the Sky Race they have up there in September. They're experimenting with, if you got on public transport, there'll be a VIP area for you at the finish and stuff like that. So I think those sorts of things need to grow. I mean, it is sometimes difficult. Some of these races are in remote areas, and but for car sharing is a legitimate thing. It won't suit everyone, but that is hopefully something that should be incentivized, I think. I feel like it's shouldn't be too difficult in most scenarios. I wouldn't have thought.
One thing that I would say is simply putting the public transport options above any car directions. It's a very simple nudge on the website, for example, because then people think, oh, how can I get there by train, before they start thinking about how to drive and park there, which is definitely. One that literally takes 2 seconds to change.
Got quite an interest. Sorry, you finish it.
Go on, Greg.
Sorry, I've got something to read from your book, Damian. It's quite interesting. switching your money so it's not being invested in fossil fuels could be 21 times more impactful. Don't know why it's 21 times. 21 times more impactful than going vegetarian, giving up flying, or switching to an energy supplier. I must admit, I've heard that, pension schemes, sometimes they're investing your money unwisely in terms of the green impact. And I don't know too much about it. I mean, do you know much about this? Like you say in your book, that it can be far more impactful than a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of almost silent problems, isn't it? That you're contributing without knowing. I mean, I don't have a pension, but I switched my bank account. I was with Barclays, and they're one of the worst. And it ended up being a lot smoother actually than I thought it was going to be. I put it off for months and months because I thought this was going to be a nightmare. I'm paid by lots of different people. My primary income is coaching. It's all individual sort of payments. I thought this was going to be a nightmare, and it was really straightforward. And I just feel a lot better. I feel like I'm not my overdraft isn't isn't contributing. I think hopefully most people look into that. And I think in the back of the book there is I think I put a resource in there where you can check. I hope I did. I meant
Make My Money Matter is the main place I'd refer people to, and Mother what's it called? Mother Tree is another one that compares the carbon impacts of banks and pensions. I can also talk for ages about pensions if anyone would like. We've only got 5 minutes left, but I've just been looking at this as in the pension impacts of my entire company's pension schemes.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking several £billion of pensions.
I'm going to have a private call with yourself, Dave.
Yeah. I calculated it, and it's probably about 800,000 tons of carbon in pensions alone.
It's a big area to look at, isn't it? I mean, I draw my pension. I work for the gas company, would you believe, most of my life. So I'm guilty, I'm guilty for all this stuff up there, because I worked in the gas industry. But you innocently do these things, and you have done throughout your life. And I've got a pension now, and I've got no idea what my pension scheme, what they're investing money in. Should I withdraw it and put it somewhere else? Probably. It's a big thing. It's a big thing.
We can have a chat about that if you like, Greg, or I can put something in the Discord as well.
Okay.
Because the fundamental thing I'd first start with is ask them where they invest it, because if you ask your pension trustees about that, whoever they may be, firstly they'll be really excited because no one cares about pensions and they're really lonely people. That's what I heard the first time I asked a question in my workplace about pensions. They were like, no one's interested in pensions. So and then hopefully they'll actually be able to tell you. So what they can't tell you is where every single penny is invested normally, but they can give you like a top 10 list of funds that they're invested in. And quite frequently fossil fuel companies appear in the standard funds, unless you choose one which excludes those. There are caveats to this. So a lot of the pension funds, you might hear stewardship funds or ESG funds, and those ones exclude certain things which are deemed to be, let's say, unethical or not in line with ESG. So things like gambling or military weapons, etc. But actually, most of the time, they still include fossil fuel companies, unless they're doing things like coal tar sands and stuff like that, which is sometimes seen as more.
Area, isn't it? I mean, it makes you wonder about where pension schemes may be involved with sponsoring runs and things like that, and how we can tie it back into what we're all concerned about.
So there's a good question to come out of that, Greg, which is something we were talking about in our group chat today, which is about high carbon sponsorship in sport. So I don't know, Damian, if you want to have a brief chat about that.
Yes, we're going to. So for those who follow, say, football, also probably golf and cycling, that high carbon sponsorship is just rife, especially in football. And yes, horrendous sports washing of these companies that know their time is coming and they're trying to create good PR and say, oh no, but we do this and that, and it's terrible. But it is coming into running. It's not as obvious in running yet, but there are several races sponsored often by banks that fund fossil fuels, and green runners I can't say too much, but yeah, we're having some behind the scenes discussions with some campaigners who are really pushing this agenda, and I think we're going to start
the ball up, doesn't it, into the big greenwashing thing generally. You can be led down a false path thinking that you're buying a pair of trainers, for example, that are fully recyclable, blah blah blah. And when you actually look into it, it's not quite the truth, is it?
Yeah, I'd say greenwashing, I mean, that's bad too. There's in a way a different thing. I think we're going to see lots of we're seeing the worst people trying to use sport to make themselves look better, and I think we've got to stand up and go, we don't want it. We don't want you in our sport, really.
I need to get short. I mean, we can overrun. I've got a full account on this situation at the moment, so we can overrun.
I think Des had his hand up again. Des, were you going to ask a question?
Someone going to ask? Who was that?
Yeah, it was just about the pension parts. Des didn't hear. We friends of there, Falkirk, we've done a sort of campaign. It's just if anyone's looking for anything, that'd be approaching your local council and asking where their pension pot is. What is so if you're involved in any localised green groups or anything like that, we looked at our council to try and make some changes there. It was just an idea. That was all. Thank you.
No, that's brilliant, Des. POW did do a campaign on this about a year ago.
Protect our winters.
Yeah.
I was going to say.
Yeah, just encouraging people. They created the letter, and you could just email it straight away. And I did get chatting to one of my local councillors here in Wiltshire who was sympathetic. I should probably follow up and see if anything's actually happened. He was sympathetic, but that's a good reminder, actually. But yeah, that might be one for green ones to think about. But I think this sports washing is maybe more pressing. I think it's just going to get worse. Well, then it's not more pressing. It's all it's all really pressing. And
okay, let's see.
It feels more relevant.
Damian, are you available to hang around for a little while, or
I could do another 10 minutes? Yeah.
Sorry,
I could do another 10 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's go for the 10 minutes then, shall we? A little bit on the lighter side. We're getting in a bit heavy there. I'd love to hear more, David, about your pension stuff. I must admit, I do want to know about that. Damian, what is your favourite joke from your book?
Oh, drat. Why aren't Egyptian hippopotamuses worried about climate breakdown? Because they're living in denial.
I love it.
Right.
Yeah, just denial as in, the river. Okay, fine. Just to explain. Any others that come to mind while we're on jokes?
I think there was one about Donald Trump, which felt a bit dated already when it was in the book. I can't remember. Oh, I mean, yeah, read the book. I'm not a great joke teller.
I was desperately thumbing through trying to find a joke. I couldn't find one. But when I read it, there were loads of jokes. Yeah.
Kenny was going to ask a question there, I think. Did you have a hand up, Kenny?
All right, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought to myself about Patagonia, Damian. You never mentioned Patagonia in your book, and I wondered if some of the young athletes that were struggling for sponsorship, if anybody or the Green Runners has approached Patagonia. They've got a really good ethical standing on their running stuff, with the lifetime guarantee and the repair and reuse that they kind of invented, and they're always down at Kendal. Are the Green Runners going to Kendal Mountain Fields Festival this year? And has anybody approached Patagonia about the Green Runners or ambassadors for runners that are struggling for sponsors?
Yeah, great question. I did try and look at Patagonia in the book, and because they have been, they are a contradiction like any ethical business is, but they're still, when I thought about it hard, they're still the best sportswear brand, most ethical sportswear brand around, because they're the only ones that will actually fund activism, which I thought was pretty amazing. I mean, as the Green Runners, we've been quite careful. We don't want to align with any sort of one brand, because that compromises our independence quite a lot. But yeah, that could be something with, just thinking out loud with Into Ultra, this new thing I'm involved with. We do have some brands keen to support, and we don't need that independence there. We just want brands, who will help us really. So you are right. I may, if we're short of stuff. Well, actually, what we're trying to do at the moment is most of the kit we source, we're trying to make it, good, but second-hand or repaired kit. So like reactive and pre-loved sports are being pretty helpful. But they're definitely on my list of people to contact if we need more stuff. They are in a really bad industry. They are the good guys, I would say.
And AJ is one of their athletes.
Oh yes, well.
So they do have a couple of sort of ambassadors who are green runners. I'd say.
Yeah.
Kendall, I don't think any of us have spoken with Kendall Mountain Festival recently. I feel like they asked us last year.
Yeah, good question actually. Sorry, Kenny. That was don't know. I won't go this year. We'll see. We'll have to see. Actually, I don't know.
We're going to be at Love Trails. If anyone is aware of that, it does clash with the climate relay, but a few of our members are going to be there to do some run leading, and Damian's going to be there to talk some nonsense.
Tell hippopotamus jokes.
Yeah,
we've got the proof recorded that he doesn't talk nonsense.
Well, I don't know about that. Anyone else got final questions for the last few minutes?
Damian, do you think runners are a particular type of person?
I guess yes and no. I mean, it's very hard to find a runner I don't like. There is something about runners that seems to make... I mean, running makes me happy, and I doubt I'm the only one who would say that. It's hard to... it's rare you meet a runner who you don't like, but obviously we're all different ages and backgrounds and so on. So yes and no.
What do you think? I mean, one characteristic I recognise in myself and other runners, we can be quite obsessive about not only our running, but obsessive. Do you think that's a factor?
Sorry, what was the last thing you said?
Do you think that is a factor of obsessiveness? I mean, you do get obsessive running, don't you? You get people that, at various different levels, they can't possibly miss their run. And if they do, they might go into a depression or something. I'm just trying to zero in on what the personality type is.
I definitely see levels of obsession in myself and others, and especially maybe in the more ultra distance where you're a bit more extreme minded perhaps, or a bit more I think obsessive is the word. I mean I wouldn't say every runner is obsessive, because I've definitely met some runners who are quite casual, can be quite casual about it, possibly even have a healthier relationship with it than people like me. But I'm definitely obsessed with it. That's probably a word you'll hear.
I've got one question that I'm quite interested in, which is, who do you think are the next sort of Kilians, like up and coming in the world of ultra running? You must have quite a few people about, I imagine.
I mean, what's fascinating about Kilian is nearly all the people that he was racing with 10 years ago, most of them aren't racing now. So he's incredibly durable, incredibly smart, with his incredibly talented, sort of genetically talented. It's pretty brutal sport, not just in the individual races, but a lot of the top runners are only around for 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know. I'm not paying as much attention to kind of maybe the international scene to sort of spot the young stars now, but they'll usually come from America or from Europe, sort of France or Spain. I suppose because I've stepped to my attention's been more absorbed by this side of things and stepped away from things like UTB. If I'm honest, I'm not following the youngsters so much. So you, David, I think you.
Definitely not me.
Anyway, I'd just like to finish off on a couple of trivia questions. I love trivia questions. Right, Damian, your choice out of pork scratchings or crisps?
Crisps, please.
You're plant-based, of course, aren't you? And right, dinner date. Would you prefer dinner with Putin or Hitler? I'll give you a choice, you know.
Putin.
Now, I've got to read something into that. Thank you very much, Damian. I've really found this very, very interesting. Thank you, David, for your sensible running questions that I would never, ever have come up with, because I'm not really involved in this kind of ultra type stuff. Thank you so much, Damian. It's been enlightening. We must have a Mark II somewhere down the line.
I'm busy that day. I've got a soya yogurt needs eating.
Sorry?
I've got a soya yogurt needs eating that day. But thank you, Greg. This has been refreshing and different. And thank you very much. And thank you for everyone who tuned in. Hope it wasn't too.
Damian.
Davo, one last question. Who else from the Green Runners, celebrity runners, would you nominate to be next up for this running session?
Well, I think I definitely get over
David Starley.
David would be great. I don't feel like we've heard from Dan Lawson for a while, but there's a very, very talented runner in our group who doesn't get the coverage he deserves, which is Russell Bentley as well, from based in Wales. He's a sub 2. What's he on? He's sub 2:20 marathoner. I think he's on about 2:15. I think. No, he's 2:20. 2:20.
Lots
in
of
his day.
Very interesting.
Oh, banter.
Jasmine.
Russell Bentley, I think we should hear more from him. He's brilliant. But yeah, who else? There are lots of. AJ's got some. He's got some big races coming up. He's been training very well. Let's see how he gets on.
Lavaredo next weekend.
Well, yeah, thank you, everybody, particularly Damian. Thank you for the questions. Everybody who's attended. We must do this again sometime. Feedback is very, very welcome, and I'd like to hear your feedback. I'm sure Damian would. But if I get your feedback, I won't tell Damian the truth. So, you know, thank you, everybody. I wish you a good evening, and cheers.
Cheers, folks. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Damo.